And have they ever been in contact with you since you left the academy?
No, not once.
0.012%. That's the percentage of boys playing organised youth football in England that go on to play a single minute in the Premier League. That equates to only 180 boys out of 1.5 million. The big question is what happens to players when they're released? What happens when the dream of becoming a footballer abruptly ends? In October 2020, former Manchester City academy player Jeremy Whiston was found dead in his room, aged just 18. This occurred a year after he was released by City. This tragedy sparked a debate about whether football clubs should be doing more to support young players off the pitch. Research by the Professional Footballers Association found that 5 out of 6 footballers who were signed at 16 years old will no longer be in the game 5 years later. Studies have also uncovered a deeper impact on the mental health of young players. 88% of players aged under 24 who were released in 2020 suffered from anxiety or depression. It was also found that 55% of all players released from academies suffered from clinical psychological distress.
Although everything that we do does have a positive impact on performance, happy off the pitch, happy on the pitch, is that we're not here to talk about technical, tactical, because it's not our job. We're here to make sure that the players feel safe and supported.
Chelsea's academy is based here in Cobham, and former Chelsea youth player Alex Zubaydi still lives in the area. He had been at the club from an early age, but as he grew up he realised the demands from the academy were starting to impact his education, which had always been a priority.
As a young kid, you know, you dream of being a footballer and you're living this incredible lifestyle. So also as a young kid, you can imagine having the opportunity to miss a day of school or half a day of school to go play football is like, oh my God, like I'm living this amazing lifestyle. But yeah, Mum and Dad were in contact with Chelsea the whole time and also had looped in the school and said, this is just not feasible. I don't want my son sort of missing a day of school from the age of, say, 13 or 14, how it started. It's just not possible, and the club had to adjust.
Alex was subsequently released by Chelsea at 15, but was never told why.
If I'm honest, and I don't know whether this is just a rare case, I never had confirmation in terms of the reason why I was eventually dropped from the academy. You know, it's something that even at this age, it's still like in the back of my mind where I'm like, why didn't I ask like my coach, or maybe Mum and Dad know, why haven't I asked them in terms of confirmation of why I was dropped? Because my interpretation of it was that Chelsea always knew that they were second best. Education was always the number one, and my parents made it clear with myself and both the club. So that would be my understanding of why I was dropped. Essentially, education was my priority. Chelsea was second, and I was dropped the year before my GCSEs as well. So I have a feeling, if I'm being honest, that would be my understanding, but I don't know fully. I don't have an answer to why I was dropped.
Focus on football and football only. But are all clubs the same? League One side MK Dons don't have the same infrastructure as a club like Chelsea. Danny Collins was a former academy player at the club from 12 to 16. Danny was a highly regarded player during his teenage years, mainly playing as a centre-half and representing England at youth level. But the reason we wanted to talk to Danny was not because of his time at MK Dons. At 16, he made the brave decision to move to Stuttgart in Germany. One of the major reasons he did this was because of the model for education in German football academies.
In Germany, what was a lot different was, as part of what they offered me and the opportunity to go to an international school, do an international baccalaureate for 2 years. They were able to do that because the model in Germany is such, or at least in Stuttgart, is such that you go to school throughout the day up until under 19s. So a year longer than the traditional scholarship in the UK. So my schedule was manic, but they put a massive emphasis on getting the grades you needed to pass your exams, etc. Or not even just that, but also attaining the level that they felt you were able to achieve. So it wasn't just a case of pushing you through the school system and passing. It was also a case of, right, well, this is your potential. We need to make sure you hit it.
Contrastingly, football academies in England have more of a one-size-fits-all approach, which Danny believes could be improved.
I think there needs to be a system in place which tailors to everyone's individual needs. And if one player's ambition is to don't do A-levels, then that should be a priority. And it also shouldn't prohibit him from doing well on the pitch. And then on the opposite end, we should also be pushing those who maybe aren't excelling necessarily in school, but pushing them into avenues where they can fall back on and have something to rely on, except when or if their football career doesn't pan out in the way they plan.
Gloucester City are a non-league club, currently plying their trade in the National League North. Jamie Bremner has been at the club since 2019. He had been in academies for much of his teenage years. He was at Bristol City from the ages of 8 to 14, before gaining a scholarship at cross-city rivals Bristol Rovers at the age of 16. However, by 18, he was still down the pecking order at the club and was eventually released. Jamie was very candid about the stresses of football and emphasised the need for player care to help footballers mentally.
But if you're going to play, down in League 1, League 2, you've got to have a life. You've got to, look after yourself, because people that get spat out. I mean, prime example, 1 week ago, the Yeovil captain committed suicide. And people would say, but he's a footballer. He's got the dream job. He's a footballer. But you don't know, what's going on. And I think that's where the player liaison and player welfare comes in. I think that would be the main thing that football needs to improve on. Is that strand of it.
He also pointed out that it doesn't require much effort to check in with players, both at the club and when they leave.
The saviour for most people, I would have thought. Even if it just check up once every month, just a phone call, that would just improve things straight away. What does that take? 5 minutes? It's really not that hard.
Since Jeremy Whiston's death, there has been a far greater emphasis on player welfare in academies. Player care was introduced to clubs in 2018 to support players in their educational and psychological needs. At Norwich City FC, although the role has now been in place for a number of years, player care still face issues in getting their philosophies across.
It's the newest role, and I think it is, and this is not controversial. I do think it's the least understood as well, unfortunately, and that's our biggest frustrations of working within the game, within the professional elite environment. We've obviously got strong values of what believes right for the player care aspect of it, but it's all about supporting the players to make sure they've got that right support away from the academy, that they understand when they're feeling low what they need to do, and things that need to be grateful for and take great pride in. All these things that are neglected when you obviously are at the worst part of your life.
With only 0.012% of academy players becoming professional, Norwich make sure that no one is sold an unrealistic dream.
Just because you're at a football academy definitely doesn't mean that you're going to have a successful, long professional contract. So we really do see the value in preparing our players for life after football, whether that be at 35 or that be at 17. We would be doing our players a disservice if we did not prepare them for the reality that the slim percentage of footballers make it. So, we don't like to say plan B or backup, because it shouldn't be a backup. It should be something that they can do alongside football.
In the past, it has been difficult for footballers to speak openly about mental health. More recently, there's been a shift in mindset.
I mean, I haven't worked in football for as long as Clive has, but even in the few years that I have, and just being a football fan and growing up and seeing the shift in the amount of people that now talk about their mental health, and then hopefully trying to create a culture within academies where everything is accepted and it's okay to not feel okay, is that by the time hopefully our academy players become professionals or become, not necessarily just professional footballers, but professional in any kind of capacity, is that they feel courageous enough and they feel that it is okay and acceptable enough to just talk about their mental health freely.
It is easy for people to put a mask on, and I think making people aware that no, actually you can't just keep it in, you can't just put a show on for an hour and a half, 2 hours that you're in the club. You need to be speaking about it.
Measures have been taken by clubs to ensure that we never have another story like Jeremy Whiston's. The player care role has been designed so that young players hoping to make it in the game professionally are never let down by the system. Ex-academy players like Danny, Jamie and Alex have all stressed the importance of education, and Norwich's dual careers pathway has also emphasised the need for learning off the pitch. So I'm here in East London at Leyton Orient Football Club to see how they balance creating professional footballers and young professionals, capable of succeeding if Plan A does fall through. Leyton Orient has been committed to developing the next generation of footballers since they formed in 1881. The academy ranges from under-9s to under-18s, with a scholarship programme from under-16s. Players train twice a week and are given support in fitness and nutrition alongside technical skills. The East London club prides itself on its coaching standards. Orient have academy graduates such as Brighton's Stephen Alzate now playing at the highest level, but the coaches think it's necessary to be realistic with players about their chances.
We're trying to put in steps now to make them prepared, so we've done more workshops with players, education work with our education officer, but also with like former players or academy players who are still at the club, and just kind of detailing their journey and obstacles and hurdles that they've faced. So there's a lot more going in. We're trying to, especially that aftercare almost, we're trying to put a little bit more into that as well, because it's been a tough one. It's been an eye-opening experience for me coming into the under-16s this year, working with them, doing the scholarship decisions and really trying to help them find clubs after or the alternative educational routes.
The coaches know how important it is for young players to believe they can have a career in football. But they also know the potential dangers of false hope when players are released from the club.
One of the things that's really shocked me is that the surprise for players, whether that's delusion on their part, and it can be, players, and especially parents. To be honest, it's more parents than players have to deal with the reality that their kids that they thought was, they're probably boasted to their other friends and family that this is the star, he's going to be a footballer, and then it comes crashing down. And what I think I've realised is educating the players is, on that aspect particularly, is massive, and trying to prepare them for alternative routes like college programmes, like I spoke about before, are really important, because it's not right that a kid can be led on like that. So we've got to make sure that doesn't happen.
The coaches at Leyton Orient are primarily responsible for developing the players on the pitch, but as key figures in the lives of the young footballers in their care, they also have a duty for developing the person. Academy staff think that education is a top priority for making well-rounded young people.
So their education outside of the academy is driven by school, but we have an education officer that has strong links with all of their schools, that will make communication with their schools. Part of their responsibility of being here is that the schools will share and the players will share their school reports, so we get updates on how well they're performing at school, so that we can help drive that. I suppose we have additional education bits that we try to do, more around nutrition, more around health, those types of things that will probably have a link with a football career. Our primary drive is to make professional footballers. That's what our primary drive is, as well as making them good people to go alongside that, and good people will be good professionals, whether it's a professional footballer, whether it's a professional doctor, teacher, wherever they look to go.
After the mistakes made with Jeremy Whiston and others like him, mental health is a key issue in football. But do the players have a backup if the dream collapses?
A lot of people tell us about if we ever get that one injury that could stop us from playing football, so I'm very keen on getting my schoolwork all up to a good standard, and I think I want to stay in a world of football, so something to do with nutrition or maybe physio or something.
I always got that in the back of my head. Always wanted to do something based around football. It's probably sports psychology or something in that field.
I've had a load of things that I've wanted to go into, but I think football is probably the main one, because if I can make it to a footballer, that'd be brilliant, obviously. So I'm gonna keep on working hard, and hopefully the dream will come true.
I'm trying to focus more on my football. However, I know education plays a big part, but if I focus more enough on my football, then I think it can get me there.
Giving up on the footballing dream isn't easy, but clubs, and especially player care, are doing more than ever to ensure players have the necessary education to succeed in the real world. Individuals such as Danny, Jamie and Alex have shown the next generation that life after football, though difficult, is always what you choose to make of it.
Are you happy now?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've come out with a very good degree. I've got a stable job. I've got good qualifications behind me, and I think if I didn't have those things, then I'd be absolutely gutted.